In this video, I'm going to demonstrate how to do one-way and two-way ANOVAs in Excel with and without replication. So that's what we'll be looking at. And if you want to follow along, you will see the link to get this data set in the description of the video, so you can go there and download that data set if you want to follow along, or if you just want to have models for how to set up the data, because it needs to be set up particular ways to do ANOVA here in Excel. And the other thing you need to be aware of is, first, I'm using 365, so yours may look slightly different. The second is you need, under the Data tab, to have this option here. This is Data Analysis on the far right. If it does not show that, I'll show you how to get it. You want to come over to File, go down to the very bottom where it says Options, and then you want to come down here to Add-ins. Under Add-ins, just click on the first one, Analysis Tool Pack. Come down below where it says Excel Add-ins and hit Go. Once you're there, click on these two options here and click OK. Once all that is done, you should have it set up right there. You should see that. Once that's done, let's go ahead and talk through how to do it. First, we're going to do just a one-way ANOVA. Now, with ANOVA, you will be typically comparing the means of 3 or more groups. It can be done with 2 groups. So I'm going to do it with the 2 groups here. Of course, a t-test could be done as well, but I'm going to use this data to show you how to do it within ANOVA. And if you had 3 groups, you'd have a third column, or if you have 4 groups, you have 4 columns, and they don't need to be exactly the same length in this case. But what we're going to do is click on Data Analysis. And when that pops up, I'm going to go up to ANOVA Single Factor. It's just a one-way ANOVA here, ANOVA Single Factor, and hit OK. And you'll see this interface pop up. And now what we're going to do is just select our data. I'm going to go ahead and select all of that there. And I'm going to tell it I do have labels. There are labels in the first row. And here you need to tell it whether your data is grouped by columns or rows. You can group it by rows, so one row maybe has the male data, another row has all the female data. Just need to tell it that. The next thing you need to do is you just need to tell it where you want the output to go. You can click here to put in a new worksheet. That's generally a default. In this example, I'm going to use this option, the output range. It keeps my results within the same worksheet. And I'm doing that because I've got 3 different sheets here, and I want the data to stay in the results to stay in the same sheet as the data. But I need to tell it where I want it to go. And really what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell it where the upper left-hand corner is going to be. So I'm going to put in here, say, F2. And if I put F2, it means the output is going to start here and go to the right and downward from there, the results. So let's go ahead and click OK. And you'll see the results here. The main thing that you may need to do would be to adjust the column width so you can see what's going on. You'll see this has all the results that you typically get for ANOVA. And just really briefly, you can compare this averages the mean for the males versus the females here, their variances. Okay. And you can look down here and you can see the various information typically in an ANOVA table. The purpose of this video is not to teach you the theory, but to just show you how to find the results, how to use the software. And you see the p-value located right here, so I do not have a statistically significant difference. And this is all the information you would typically look at in order to do a one-way ANOVA. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to go look at a two-way ANOVA. There's 2 different kinds that are here within this Data Analysis tab. I'll just show you that to start. We have with replication and without replication. And the way they've used those terms here, I feel like, are a little bit confusing. With replication means that, at least that you have, if you've got 2 factors you're looking at, suppose one's gender and one's a treatment or something like that, that there are multiple individuals within each of those combinations. So I have multiple males in treatment A and multiple females in treatment B and so forth. Okay, well that is not the case without replication, and when I show you the data that may be helpful. Let's go to the without replication. Without the replication, really what we've got here is just a list of individuals, and those individuals have 2 scores. Okay, so you might think of this as what we would call a, in a lot of other textbooks and so forth, the repeated measures ANOVA. So I have multiple individuals and there's repeated measures on each of them. And within the software here, they're going to call that 2-factor without replication. Meaning that 2 factors, one being the person, the other being their score, and there's not replications within that. And again, I would probably refer to this more as the repeated measures. Now, so we'll go up here, click on Data Analysis, and this is the 2-factor without replication. Click on OK. Going to just select my data here. I'm going to tell it, yes, there are labels for my rows and columns. And I'm going to either tell it, we tell it either to put the output in this sheet, in a separate sheet, or in a whole new Excel workbook. Let's say I put it here, and I'm just going to put it in that F2 spot again. You can put it wherever you want, it'll work fine. Click on OK, and you'll see here the output. Okay, so we've got persons listed here, pre-test versus post-test, and it gives you the various means and variances for each of those cases. It's going to give you in the ANOVA table, the variation. It's going to talk about the variation that has to do with rows, which is persons, the variability person to person. And it's going to give you the variability due to columns, which is pre-test versus post-test here. And you see both of those come out statistically significant. So that's that option, the 2-factor without replication, which again, you might think of as a repeated measures ANOVA. Okay, next I'm going to go to the third option that it has here in Excel, which is with replication, they call it. Okay, this is basically your basic 2-way design. I've got 2 that in this case, they do represent repeated measures, okay, and I've got male versus female. So these individuals do not pair up with these individuals down here. 2 independent groups here. However, I have a repeated measure. So this is a 2-way where one of them is a repeated measure. So that's the other option that lets us do here in Excel. I'm going to click on 2-factor with replication for this particular design. I'm going to highlight my data. And here it wants to know basically the number of persons in each of the 2 groups. So they would have to be the same for for you to use this function. Okay. Here I've got 6 rows within each group, the male group and the female group. And I'm going to go ahead again and tell it to put that output. I'm just going to tell it F2. Click OK. And here you will find your output. And you've got your p-values, samples. The p-value to sample is male versus female. This is the one due to columns is pre-test versus post-test. And this is the interaction between those, which is not statistically significant.